right, Hammond, we're back again for another week.
Hey,
What's
another
going
week,
on?
another
How are
day.
you? How are you?
Good. So,
Busy.
yeah, excited. I think it's a great session today. We talked about last time a lot of things. We talked about the profit optimization, AOV optimization, and now we talked about we're gonna talk about email marketing, and it's a very exciting
Exactly.
subject. I think that's it's one of the edges, like it's kind of an edge you can run into your business to scale. So yeah, very, very excited.
I think you hear a lot of brands and a lot of founders. I remember before I started in business, like a lot of people would say to me, the value's in the list. And I was like, I don't know what that means. Like when you don't know what that is, or you don't have a list to begin with, you're like, okay, I just want to make, some more profit in my business. Whatever you mean by the list, I don't really understand it. And then when you develop a big email list and you really leverage it correctly, it's it dramatically changes the profitability of your business. So talk to me about your perspective on email marketing from really high level. So assuming right now, like we're starting from scratch and I'm like, what is email marketing? What does it kind of include? What are the components? Like, what is it?
So first, if you're starting out, you need to look at the essentials. So what do you need in terms of like email marketing? And when you look at email marketing, it's pretty much you have different components. You have the automation part, which is pretty much when you have, you know, some I would say behaviors that would I would say in your store and someone, let's say, come to your store, they start the checkout and they leave. You have an automation that would kind of trigger that moment to get you, I would say, that conversion that you might lose. So you have the automation where it's pretty much essentials for you to run your business. Think about it as if you go to a store and you're like, your customer is kind of like checking around and then they leave and you're just taking a card and throwing that in their bag. Hey, just remember me later on. That's the checkout
Mm.
flow. So it's pretty much like trying to bring back people after they saw like your product and they actually showed a high intent in terms of like behaviors. So that's the automation part. So you have all these automation flows that Klaviyo or any email marketing tool would recommend, and we would always look at having them by default. You can't run your ads if you don't have the flows, because if you don't have the flows, then pretty much you're running against people that are running like say something in the back end that you're not aware of, and they're using it and you're not using it. So technically, it's not even a fair game. So if you're running your business right now, you're running ads, and you're thinking, hey, I don't need email marketing. Hey, you need it. Your competition is using it, and you're not. So that's kind of the essentials in terms of that first level. Now, as you grow a little bit, we go to the campaign. This is when you have a list and it's really increasing your AOV, your lifetime value. Like there's so many wins from focusing on the emails in terms of returns. Keep in mind that in the long run, you want to build that massive list where it's passive income. So you can pause the
Mm.
ads and still make money. And that's kind of the beauty of email marketing, in my opinion. It's really scaling
Mm.
the acquisitions because you're acquiring people from Meta, Google, you're paying to get that person, but you're not talking to them later on. So it's almost like you have a way to send an invite every week to your customers to bring them to your stores. That's email marketing.
Mm. And I think the thing with it as well is like similar to what you just mentioned there in terms of like if you don't communicate with those people, they just forget about you. They just straight up
Yes.
do, and like you've paid for that lead, you've generated that interest via like advertising, and then it sits in like this list, and then you never speak to it anymore. It's like it's such a waste. I think I really understood some of the power of email marketing when we had that Basu company, and I recently purchased that company, and then we weren't running any traffic, we weren't running any advertising. We were just like having the business going through a change of kind of like hands. We moved it from like one operation in terms of warehousing to a different operation. And there was a lot of back and forth. And I was like, okay, we're gonna turn all the advertising off. We're gonna literally just like turn it off while we make this move because it was like, 2 weeks or something, shifting all the boxes, the locations and everything. And the interesting thing that happened was that like through that whole time, the company just continued to make like two, three, $4,000 a month. And I was like,
Using
have I left something on? And the thing is,
you forget
number
to
one,
add.
there was no email marketing that was actually being sent. It was just the actual recurring customer, the natures of the recurring customers, because the product was really good, but it really like emphasized. And then what we did is once we actually landed the stock in the actual new warehouse, there hadn't been much email marketing running through the company. And so we did this like little activation flow, really, really, really simple. A couple of campaigns being like, hey, this is what we're doing. We're in this, new location, new exciting things. Check this out, our new products, time for a refresher. And we did like, I think it was like $10,000 in like a day immediately. And I was like, most of that's profit. You minus the cogs. And it's like,
There's no advertising. It's like pure profit.
it's just incredible. And I think, it takes a few moments of those types of situations for you to realize the power in terms of how much it can actually impact your bottom line. Being like, wow, I send these messages to my list and I literally can take my net profit from maybe 10% to sometimes 30%. Like it's
Yes.
dramatic, the change.
And I think that, if you have this advantage, it's almost like if you master email marketing, you have an edge in the market. Like if you really
Mm,
put your effort into that. Every business, they come in like, hey, I want to do better creatives. Yes, you should do better creatives. That's kind of the focus. But if you have a
mm,
really strong email marketing structure, then you have an edge. That you're taking every
correct.
dollar that you're spending and it's making kind of transformation of that dollar. It's like much more valuable. And if you do this over the long run, then technically you can really make a massive impact in terms of like your business overall scale because every customer means much more to you because you can leverage the back end and do email marketing.
Mm.
So I think that's a strong positioning in general if you really focus on it.
And
That's
I
kind
think
of my
that
view.
just yeah, just to add to that as well, I think it's also like everybody in the market knows, and if you don't, then now you know that content is really crucial, right? And so like it's like what we discussed a little bit in terms of the conversion rate on your actual product page as well. It's kind of like everyone knows that you should be developing new creatives. Everyone knows you should be, testing UGC and you should be pushing different advertising live constantly to find new winners. It's like, it's just what people do. It's like what every marketer kind of understands that you need to go through in order to make more money with front end traffic. But it's almost like the email marketing side of things is like set it up, put some messages in there, maybe put a few automations in place. Heck, I might even like type an email and run some campaigns, and that's about it, right? And all the focus goes onto the front end of your company in terms of how can I arbitrage more cash into Meta for cheaper and cheaper prices and fight for, lower bidding cost. And it's like
More,
it, right? It's such a competitive, fiercely like savage space that you're fighting for versus being like, hey, like let's get this good in terms of the front end and get my costs good. And I'm going to keep testing ads always. But hey, if I really focus on this back end and drive better profit, like number one, no one's focusing on it exclusively to master it. They're always just like new creative, new creative, new creative. But hey, like I'm going to really focus on email marketing and become amazing at it and develop like an incredibly high profit back end. You can really make some serious impact on your company, and you can be even more dangerous because you can bid for much more expensive acquisitions on Meta and then outbid your competition because you're like, I know my email marketing so strong, I'm going to make all my profit back, even though I'm maybe breaking even on the front end. Very powerful stuff.
absolutely. It's really powerful. And I think every business owner is like, hey, I'm doing email marketing, I'm doing really well. It's like I have the flows. But you don't do A/B tests, you don't improve. Like it's like almost like I'm working out, I'm lifting the same weight every single time, and
Yes.
I'm expecting to gain
Yes.
muscles. So you should try to do more, right? You need to really push the levels. And that's I think in general, email marketing, it's the same thing. They run the same setup for a while and just they don't try to improve it. I think that's a strong also element in general in e-com that I see.
Yeah. From your experience and from your perspective, I guess, where would you start with email marketing? Assuming, say, for example, like I'm a brand, I'm making like say $50,000 a month. Where would you start, in that position? Assuming right now, let's just hypothetically say like I haven't set any flows up. Maybe I have like just some really basic like abandoned cart flows, and maybe like a post-purchase flow. I'm not really sending any campaigns, maybe just ad hoc, like, oh, hey, oh, we're back. We're back. Sorry, it's been a while. Those types of emails that get sent out by founders. What would you say would be a good approach from your perspective?
So first, we need the flows first. So you need the top four flows. So you have the browse abandonment, you have the checkout, post purchase, and then you have your welcome series. So you need to have those like by default. We need to have those flows. Once we have the flows, what we need to look at is in the campaign. Like a quick tip: if you have, let's say you're doing 50K plus and you don't have email marketing structure, you can make like probably a few grands right now if you just send a couple of emails. And I know
Mm,
that's probably like, hey, is it the case? Yes. And should I do it? Yes. How frequently you should do it? Like if we can't do it, probably I'll do it today. But this is like you have a list that you're leveraging and that you have on the side that you're not leveraging that you should leverage. That's my view. If you're in that kind of positioning of doing 50K plus and you're not doing your marketing, you're pretty much losing money every single week if you're not doing emails. Now that's if you're in that level. Let's say you're starting out then and let's say you have less than 50K. So we need to probably look at first growing the list and it's almost like the flows are opening doors. So you have the sign
yeah.
up form where it's a first door where they enter in that list. So you need to look at first where are people coming from? Because that's the first thing you think about. Hey, I want to build the list, but how to build it, right? So when you get the doors, sign up form is the first door. You need to have one. Most of the time, I would not start right away with it, but I would start like just to look at my conversion rate. If you remember, we talked about the conversion rate in other episodes on how to hack things and kind of increase your conversion rate. The email marketing here, I would start with the sign up form most of the time, a little bit after figuring out my conversion rate to see a little bit the impact. Because sometimes there are some frictions from the sign up form. And that's, for example, one door. So I know I'm bringing people as I grow the business from the sign up forms. You have the checkout. So every person that go to the flow, they have an email, they leave. That's also a way to grow a very high quality, high intent audience in
Correct.
terms of your emails. So you have those doors that you need to have in your business first. Make sure they're open, right? Because if you're telling me, hey, I want to do emails, and you have all the doors closed. You don't have a sign up form, you don't have the flows, and like, hey, you don't have anything, right? So we need to first open the doors, and then we start the optimization. So that's kind of my view in terms of levels, like where we start essentials, and then we start kind of looking at the base and email
Mm.
marketing campaigns.
I think the like that welcome series in terms of like leave it like having an actual like opt-in or sign up form is it's undoubtedly one of the most powerful things in terms of like I always see that in most accounts and it's like right at the top in terms of like the amount of revenue that's being generated. And you go onto someone's website and they don't have like a sign up form or it's poorly optimized or it's a really bad offer. And you're like, there is thousands and thousands of dollars just being left on the table right here by not having even a sign up form altogether or having a really clunky and poorly optimized sign up form. It's just like such a powerful mechanism to really drive like tremendous revenue.
Absolutely. So keep in mind that if I was to look at the revenue generation by flow, you have the checkout and the welcome series, they're actually pretty good. And then you have the browse abandonment and the post purchase coming in later. But I would say that if I was to really like, I want to prioritize, you can't run your business unless you have at least a checkout and the welcome series. Like those are kind
Mm,
of like just no
yeah.
brainers. You can't, it's going to be almost like you're looking at competing and you don't have like the car doesn't have even tires, which
Yeah.
you can't. So
Yeah.
that's my view. And yeah, so I'm curious about your view in terms of like email marketing optimization. Should we kind of look at, let's say you're starting out and you're at level one. Is it like a strategy to acquire more emails, like kind of build a bigger list faster? Is something in particular that you look at in terms of maybe value structure to increase the number of customers or sorry, the subscribers in your list?
Yeah. So this is good, and we've tested a lot of different things with this as well. In terms of Oz Fishing, we ran a number of different like giveaways or competition style type campaigns, which would have like a lead conversion objective, and the sole objective of that campaign was just to generate leads for the actual subscriber list. And I think we ran like a shirt giveaway and also like a cash prize incentive giveaway that was just used as a mechanism to generate tremendous amounts of traffic and leads because we have a very active kind of like subscriber list and we also have like strong emails that consistently go out to the list. It's like I know that once they get in there, we're going to nurture them and convert them into customers. It might take a little bit longer, but it's very, very, very cheap. I think we were getting leads for like $3 or $4, and driving them into that list. So that's one of my favorite mechanisms in terms of like capturing really low cost leads that can be converted. I think another thing that's really helpful as well is some kind of like value that you can exchange for the lead in terms of whether it's maybe an ebook, a resource, something that you can develop like really specific to your niche in terms of like with Basu, for example, I know we've tested something around like, different types of like products that leave blemishes on your skin and find out some of the reasons that you might have like, unclear skin. It was like a really epic kind of breakdown of a report we did. And it was very, very, very strong in terms of converting the leads because it's very interesting. People want to know like, avoid this product, avoid this serum, avoid this thing, and then exchange. They're obviously leaving, their information, and then we can continue nurturing those people through the flows and through all of the campaigns. So those are a few of my favorite kind of mechanisms. Yeah.
So technically, like if you guys are thinking about, hey, like we want to increase the emails, we just look at the value, right? Just more value, like really,
Correct.
I would say providing something for free in exchange of kind of getting that person in your list. So it's almost
Yeah.
like you need to do something, and it's not going to be just doing like a random ebook. It really should be around what the interest is and or what the
Correct.
dream outcome
Correct.
is. I think that's going to be
Well,
probably like it's yes, go ahead.
it's very true, and I think the challenge with this as well, and I did this years ago, whereby I did just a pure like cash only giveaway, where it was like you can win like $250 cash to leave your information and sign up for our VIP list. And so what happens when you aren't very specific with either like the ebook or the type of, it's particularly giveaways. Giveaways are very prone to this because you get those kinds of like, shoppers or internet clicking people who just bang around and the only thing they want to do is just enter giveaways and maybe win money, So that's the challenge that you face with that. And so I think that's why, for example, you do have more high intent people who come into your list if it is based on like a particular ebook. There's another client of ours, and they have a service actually, and they treat people with chronic fatigue syndrome. Right, it's very, very, very particular syndrome, very, very, very detailed, and so because of the nature of the way that that kind of like offering is and the solution is they provide to their clients, all the resources that they develop in terms of like ebooks or anything for their market, it's like the people who have that problem, they read that resource and they're like, oh my God, I must get this thing.
Mm.
And so the intent is so high, and therefore any form of like opt-in or conversion event is just done with so much precision. So I think in terms of the giveaways, the exchanges, the resources or contents of value, it has to be very precise in order to exchange the lead, obviously, and convert the lead, but also do it in a way where you don't fill up your fill up your email list with just junk subscribers to sit there and don't buy.
It's really about the value and the avatar. So it's really targeting
Mm,
specifically the avatar and making sure that you're providing value. So let's say you have a business in the fitness phase, then you need to look at what do they value? What's the core value? And focus on
correct.
providing something that, when they join in, it's what they like. They're very much your avatar. So they're not just a random person looking to
Correct.
get 20 views, right?
That's precisely right. Yeah, exactly. And I think it's a great place to start if you want to build your list and do some lead gen. I guess in terms of if you're purely out there looking to just like again build your email list and start to have more of a subscriber list so you can generate more post purchase kind of activity. I almost think initially when you're starting out, it's probably more advantageous to focus specifically on the conversion event as the main event in terms of just drive sales. And then by extension, when you have the actual lead capture form on your welcome pop up, like you're going to capture all the emails anyway. And so it's kind of like what you're doing with that activity is you're getting the highest intent people because you're going for the purchase. And the people that don't purchase, they're probably going to leave their information in the pop up form. So you'll capture their email anyway. And so you build your list. Obviously, you build it slower. I feel like you do definitely build it slower, but the intent and the quality of the people that you get in that list is much, much higher. And I think when you're starting out, it's always a game of just like, where am I putting my money and what's the return on that cash? Right. And so you're always like, cost of capital, they call it in like, investment kind of philosophy is just like, I'm investing my money here. What's the return on my money here versus my money over there? And how much is it costing me to keep my money in this thing versus this thing? And in this case, it's like, you know, you can get a certain return over here with these quality leads, and it might take you longer to get an ROI because you need to nurture through so many more emails versus maybe like less volume, but much higher intent. And therefore you have a much shorter kind of conversion cycle and you can turn your cash around quicker. So that's a
Yes,
little bit
for
of my
sure.
perspective on that.
I think I do like agree on the same thing. If you're running ads right now and you have a very high quality audience, so it's a purchase conversion event, they see the sign up form. That's the highest like quality audience according to Meta.
Right,
Like just like most of the time, if you're looking at that conversion cycle you talked about, the longer it is, the more in general e-com stores they're just gonna stop doing things. Like if it's really long, like hey, I can't do it. So really the shorter the better. So I think yes, doing like less, getting like a smaller list but high quality would be the first thing to do. And then as you grow, you can kind of look at other ways, other doors to open. But initially, you don't have that privilege to really just, run like a strategy where you just acquire and wait. Specifically, if it's
right.
like wait 6 months is. I've never seen any player like, hey, I can wait 6 months and just play the ads right there, right? So it's just not going
Yeah,
to be.
absolutely. Absolutely not.
Even if you
Absolutely not.
promise, you're going to make a million, you're going to make a million. No, I can't. It's too much.
What's your thoughts on frequency in terms of how often should uh, people send emails? Like what kind? We'll go into how often first. Like, what do you think in terms of how frequently should people send emails via like a campaign?
So if you look at big brands, so let's start by looking at big brands, what they do. So let's say 8 figure, 7 figure brands. Most of the time, they're going to send an email a day. So that's what they're
Yeah.
doing. But it doesn't mean they're sending it to the same list. They're sending one
Mm,
email a day. That's by default what they do. But they're segmenting. So they have, for example, the people that opened in the last 90 days, that's an audience. People that didn't open in the last 90 days, that's another audience. So they have like engaged versus not engaged, and they send 7 days, 7 out of 7. Like they're just sending emails every single day. But then that's not even like an option. Like I've seen like we've seen businesses I would say in terms of our community where they're doing volume and they just can't afford to even just think about not sending an email. So that's the first thing to think about. Now, if you're in a business that you're just starting out, you're just like, hey, like I'm trying to get into email marketing, and I don't know like what's the levels. I would do at least 2 to 3 emails a week. And it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that you're sending promotions. It just means that you're sending some emails. As you mentioned, if you don't talk to them, they don't know you. And I think that's something that you really tackled right away because it's the reality.
Mm,
If you don't talk to them, they're not going to be engaged.
yeah. And I think I I know that it's very common to have that kind of mindset, like, well, I don't want to annoy people. You know what I mean? Like, oh,
Like,
I don't want to communicate
I
with
don't want to
them
make
too.
money. That's
Yeah.
the thing.
Well, it sounds like you don't like money, my friend. Yes, I couldn't agree more. I think but I think the change in thinking, especially in relation to annoying people, is like taking your and you mentioned it before in terms of your promotions. You said like, okay, so not every single email needs to be a promotion. And so I think if you think about what you're doing, and this is why it's very helpful to like batch your emails in terms of maybe it's a fortnight or a week or maybe a month. You write the whole campaign. And I mean, it's not terribly difficult these days with ChatGPT. And I think, Klaviyo have their own embed into, it's so easy to create, it's not like it's difficult. But having the emails be more of a conversation so that like each email picks off from the last one and it opens up a conversation and it leaves people hanging. It has like open loops inside of the email. So people are intrigued more than just like, here, buy my shit. Here, buy more of my stuff. It's like, oh God, again, it's different.
Yes, exactly. So you need to really think about like what are you actually putting out there? Same thing as the values. What are you doing? You're talking to people, they're actual people, they're opening the phone and they're looking at your email. What would you say?
Yeah.
If you're
Yeah.
hey, just I'm sending randomly. No, don't send randomly. Think about that
Mm,
person opening the email, their day. They probably like the end of the day, they're tired, they open the email. If they see something valuable, they're gonna be engaged. They're gonna click on it. They're gonna say, hey, I'm interested in this. So you need to really think about your avatar when you're sending an email. The more you think about your avatar, the better your returns are in general,
yes.
even more. I think that's how I see
Mm.
it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's pretty typical in terms of like my usual recommendations as far as like frequency is like if you can do, Tuesday and Thursday, if you can do Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I think the very important thing is with email marketing, particularly on the campaign side, obviously the flows will take care of themselves, but on the campaign side, more importantly, is like um you have to be consistent, you know? And so like if you start the relationship with people, it's like if you have a friend and then you call that friend like every Wednesday and you have a conversation and you're like, wow, this guy's great. And then like you just don't call him for like 3 months.
And
And then
then
you
you're
ring
asking them
him.
something. Like, hey, I want to ask something. I want you to help me to go to the airport. No, he's not going to be responsive. You
He's gonna
didn't
be
talk to
like,
him for
I have not heard from you at all. Like, where have you been? You didn't give me an update. You didn't tell me you were leaving. You didn't tell me, you were going to call me in 3 months. You just disappeared. It's like, it's exactly the same kind of like connection that human beings have. So very, very, very interesting overall. In terms of, so I guess we've covered a little bit in terms of like the main focus there. Welcome series being the main focus in terms of that, like, actual like lead capture. Are there any recommendations that you have around the percentage, the discount, the offer for that lead capture form that because I've got some things that I usually see, promising, but what about for yourself? Any things that you see that work well on that lead capture form?
So most of the time, I'm gonna be just really putting like a lower discount, so you can't really go high because people would really like, use this a lot. So I would think about most of the time 10 to 20%. That's in general what I would look at. 5 is too low, 30 is too high. So most of the time, 10 would be the start, and then 20 if really I want to push more. But I think
Yeah.
between that, the 10, 20 would be probably my target. 5, it didn't really work for me in terms of like numbers overall. Just they don't see the value, it's just 5%, right? And if
Correct.
you go 30, then you're giving too much in general. So it's like you're kind of giving your margins. So I would position it like that. I'm curious about your view on it. Do you go like high or you like just on the like 5? Like what's kind of let's say the structure you use?
I think that like that 10% mark is kind of the minimum. And I know that they've done research in terms of like just the level of incentive that's generally required to move somebody and have somebody see value enough to actually, respond to it. Because otherwise, like everything that we're doing in marketing particularly is we're influencing behavior, right? And so like if you drive somebody to your page and then they see something and then it's not incentivizing enough for them to actually be influenced to act, well, you failed as a marketer, you failed as a business owner, right? It's like you've driven the traffic effectively, but the thing wasn't compelling enough to, have that individual take the next step. So typically I see 10% as a minimum. I don't usually like going, more than 15%. I think that it's kind of a little bit sacrificial and you start to, gouge out too much profit or give away too much. And it depends what your margins are, but usually around that 10 to 15% level is good and it's quite appropriate. What about text message? Because I know that like text message and like the text message authorization on the lead capture, that's something that's interesting and there's multiple different ways that you can do that in terms of like there's a few sneaky ways you can do it. So what's your thoughts on the text
So
message capture, the opt-in form having that as well?
absolutely. So it's actually like it's like ignored in e-com. It's like, hey,
Yeah.
SMS marketing, it just doesn't exist. Like if you ask an e-com player, like, yeah, I don't know. It's like SMS, I do emails. I've never heard
Yes.
about SMS. And then you
Yeah.
see other businesses that are actually using this for subscription and they're really scaling with, let's say, SMS marketing and then thinking, hey, they know something that others don't know about, right? So
Yeah.
that's kind of SMS kind of used in general. So how to position this first, there are some regulations in general with e-com, particularly Klaviyo, if we look at it as a platform, you can't just put in like any random phone number and you can kind of send SMS. There are some, I would say, things that you need to change in your checkout process, as you mentioned, to get the consent to actually collect the SMS. I
Correct.
think one app in the past called like SMS Bump, still valid, but to just change the name. They used to like when someone would look at that page, instead of actually having that consent kind of explicit, they put it in the, I would say, that like when you fill the number, they have the authorization on the back. It's like you don't
Yes.
see it there. It's kind of hacking a little bit into that consent because people would you agree technically if you do this and they don't see it, they just type the number. But I think that that's a little bit like probably I would try to the same thing, have a higher quality rather than lower quality. So I'd really position like Klaviyo would do and make sure
Mhm.
we collect the consent to a certain degree so that you're not just receiving SMS and like, hey, who's this? What's this brand? So I
I
think
agree.
that's maybe probably my positioning. But SMS marketing, in my opinion, you need to look at it for the checkout. You just campaigns in general, and you look at it
Yeah.
for subscription. Very, very powerful for subscription, in my opinion. If you're having any kind of subscription, SMS would be a strong, I would say, channel for you. That's my view
Yeah.
in general. Now, I'm curious about would you do SMS for the checkout, or would you do it for like everything? So checkout, like every kind of
Mhm.
campaign, so for emails.
Yeah, so just to close off on what you mentioned there in terms of, so I was looking at some data from Optus. So Optus, one of the phone providers, particularly in Australia. I don't believe, no, they're not international. They're only Australian based, and they did some research in terms of the percentages of individuals or consumers specifically that answer the phone, open emails, and then check text messages as a percentage out of all text messages sent, out of all emails sent, and out of all phone calls that were actually dialed, right? And the phone call percentage in terms of the amount of people that actually pick up the phone, I believe it was between like 3 and 4% or something like that. It was horribly low. The email was I'm sorry, other way around. The phone call was 7%. The email was like 2.6 to 3%. And then the SMS was like 96%. So in terms of just like the cut through and the penetration as far as like getting the eyeballs onto your message, it's like you're sitting there and you're sending emails and you might be like, wow, I have a great open rate. But compared to what you could have with the SMS function, if you actually utilize it properly, like so much more beneficial. Like if you think about like when do you ever like pick up your phone and then look at it and then read a message and then just not read it? You know what I mean? It's like it's right in front of your
Yes,
face.
you left already. So this is actually something I noticed, and it's very powerful. Every time you have a customer, or even like say you want to reach to an influencer or a big like kind of brand for a partnership, they have some channels that they look at, and they have some
Mm,
channels that they look at. So you can probably, let's say, send an email, they don't look at it. But if you send, let's say, a message in LinkedIn, they might have not much like activity in there, and it's a notification they look at. So
mm,
really looking at the channel itself. SMS is kind of that part for customers. So they receive so many emails, but not a lot of SMS. If you were to send an
correct.
SMS, you have their attention by default
Correct.
because they don't have a lot of
Correct.
notification that they're just looking at, hey, I received this SMS. They don't receive 100 SMS a day, right? But they receive 100 emails a day. So I would say
Yeah.
that the noise is much more condensed in the emails versus SMS. So it's almost like you have a private way to talk to them. The private should
Yes.
be very much like you should be cautious about that because you have one
Correct.
chance that
Correct.
it's not like just spamming because they're going to be just leaving. You kind of
Don't
think about it the same way?
don't turn don't turn your SMS into your email marketing is is a good way to think about it. Don't do daily SMSs. You'll get destroyed. I think exactly the same. I think it's such a discrete, personalized approach, and I think if you use it that way, it has such high cut through and high penetration. The way we structure it on our brands is we have the front end in terms of the pop-up form just has the email itself, and then the offer on the actual front end. No, the offer is just the 10%, or I believe it is, for example. And then when they leave their email, on the second page of the pop-up, the thank you form, it says enter your phone number to go in the draw to win one free Bisou cloth every month. And so that's like this additional like value bonus. And so like as they go through that, they've already got the 10%. They're like, wow, this is fantastic. And if I just leave my mobile, like I can maybe go in the draw to win every month, every single month. And so it's like an exciting new thing that really kind of validates the decision of like I left my email. Now I'm going to leave my mobile. Next thing I'm going to go and purchase. And it really like because I think if you look at like any form of behavior from a psychological perspective, what you're trying to influence in marketing is compliance. Like you want to have people comply with your kind of like gentle, gradual kind of nudges with your marketing, your offers, your incentive, your images, your creatives. And this for me, I'm like, how can I have you say yes to the first step, email? How can I have you say yes to the second step, phone number? Next thing I'm sending you a text and have you agree with that one. Next thing you're purchasing, and next thing you're paying me for
Very
3 years into the future, you know?
So you're like almost like building this stronger relationship. So you're like, hey, I'm not
Mm.
like I'm just looking at all the ways to keep you activated, kind of as a customer,
Precisely.
and make sure that you're looking at all the channels, not ignoring the one where it's private, like the VIP one
Precisely.
versus everyday communication channel. Is it like how you
Precisely.
look?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'd love to talk about also some styles of emails in terms of campaigns because there's a few that we always draw on, especially with Oz Fishing, and they just work really well. I'm curious to know from your perspective, are there some maybe like templates, some particular like designs, some particular like structures of emails that you're like, these just crush?
Yeah. To get templates, you need to join Ecom Capital pretty much because we give them. We have them. It's by default. Send me, hey, I want templates. We have them in the coaching.
Exactly.
So yeah, but beside that, the job format, so there are a lot of things that we do. So you have, for example, if I was to look at the topics, you have the why our customers like they love us. So we're kind of positioning a little bit more like authority. You have the one with the discount. You have a lot of format and structure. And what I'll look at most of the time is what are we looking to accomplish? We're looking to like kind of send an email to bring in a person that's really like already a customer. So it's a VIP customer. So we're giving them more of a higher discount, or it's a customer that never engaged with us, or let's say a subscriber that never engaged with us. So based on that, your topics would change and your template would adjust. So that's kind of
Mm,
my view on it. Now we do, as I mentioned, like with in the coaching and so on in Ecom Capital, we provide the template for you. So I
of
do
course.
literally just clone them and we give the templates. But in my opinion, the most powerful one is the one where we show some customers. That's always powerful. Like when you
Mm,
show some customers, we show the product, the customer, the dream outcome. They always like they're more engaged. Like say, hey, this looks good. If it's a fashion product, if you show someone wearing it, like avatar, then they're gonna be more engaged with that. If you have a fitness product showing the result, they're gonna be more like kind of engaged in terms of your business. So the customers,
mm,
that's kind of a section that I would try to focus on in the emails. And then there is a discount. And obviously the value is looking at the dream outcome and as we talked about in the offer, very similar things. So dream outcome, sacrifice, and kind of positioning, that in the email, like very similar to the
yeah.
website and the offer.
Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think what we've discussed in terms of like the offer, particularly the offer, as far as like how that offer needs to be transferred into like every other area. The email marketing, you take that offer, you apply the same principles and you roll it into email marketing. Text message, same principles, put it in like it's such a powerful concept to really get right in terms of that offer setup and how that's communicated. It has so much impact across every other area of your company. It's actually insane. Um,
Absolutely.
the
And
one
and and, and
there you go.
I was just gonna go with like just the numbers in general, just for a person like, hey, I don't know, like what is a good number? So there is like kind of a just analytics. If you're looking at a campaign, The open rate would be the power of your subject line, and the click rate would be how much actually this offer is working. So if you're, let's
Yeah.
say, looking at an email, you don't know how to kind of evaluate, is it a good email, is it a bad email? Is most of the time what I see as kind of pain points, like, hey, I don't know, this email, is it actually good? Like, but what's a good email, right? Show us numbers. Most of the time, if you look at an open rate above 30% for campaigns, not automation campaigns, then that's okay. So you're within the range. If you have less than 30, you need to split test your subject line. So just like the subject line, don't
Mm.
focus on the click rate. They're not there yet. It's very similar to what you mentioned earlier. You don't want to look at like every point. You want to start with the one like level and then kind of, go with the next one. Same thing with the email. So open rate above 30, you're good. Under 30, work on the subject line. Click rate above,
Mm.
I would say normally like 1.52%. That's good. Underneath that we need to work on the content. And you can identify by looking at the campaign, again, not an automation, because automation numbers are a little bit higher. If I was to
Mm.
look at the, let's say, campaign and the numbers are not aligned, you know what to work on in your emails. And that's, I think, a powerful thing, identifying where should you put the focus in your business, particularly for emails and afterwards. I'm curious about, do you agree in terms of like those numbers, or you have like different targets? How you look
Mm.
at that?
No, I'm definitely aligned in terms of the targets overall. I think if you can achieve that in terms of your open rate, 30% or more, like you're in a pretty strong position to be able to like really activate the list. And same with the link clicks as well. Like it's such, and I guess you've broken it down really simply there in terms of, if open rate is below this, focus on subject line. Like David Ogilvy, I think I've got his book somewhere behind me here. He talks about it, in all of his books. It's like 80% of time should be spent on the subject line. Like it is. It's like by the time that people have finished reading the subject line, they've decided whether or not they want to even continue reading. So it's like all of your time should be spent there and just really focus on like capturing that. Because once they're open and once they're in, it's like the chance of them actually reading and continuing to read is so much higher. And not just that as well, because I think the thing is like there's probably a handful, maybe two or three individuals that send me emails, and they always have wildly compelling subject lines. And I think because I've clicked on like one of them before, the next time, even if it's not as good of a subject line, I'm more conditioned to be like, I wonder what this is this time. And you'll
Yes.
keep reading. So it's like it's similar to what I said before, you're conditioning behavior. And so like once you get people in that habit of reading, they will be like, I really enjoy what he talks about. I really like the way that this guy communicates, but they'll never ever see that unless you get the click, which is the subject line. I can't stress that enough. Yeah.
Yes, and keep in mind that like in emails, like you mentioned this like subject line, it's very similar to the ads that we talked about this in the previous podcast, but the hook, scroll stopper, that's it, the same thing. If you really put 80% of your effort in the hook, you're gonna get much better returns. Same thing with the emails. It's really the same principle.
Yeah.
The first thing they do, if you bring more of those people, you're gonna have more, like you're gonna have a bigger audience. And that's by
Yeah.
default, I think the same thing in terms of an email. That's my view on it.
Mm. I think one thing, as far as a specific email, and we use this a lot across the brand, is like a founder email, just like on a white, background. There's no design elements. It's just like, "G'day, mate. How are you? I'm sitting here having a cold beer this afternoon. I thought I'd send you this quick email because we're about to run out of stock in this particular design. I'd hate for you to miss out for you and your family this weekend coming up to Easter. Like, no joke, mate. Get in now before they're gone."
That's a
You know,
powerful email. That's a
that
powerful email.
that type of an approach where it's like they read it and they look at it, they're like, wow, it looks like he just emailed me personally. and and
Yes.
and crazy cut through, crazy performance. Like we see it consist, especially on those fishing shirts, like those founder type emails where it's just and it has to be like very authentic. And we've also seen tremendous success with emails of this kind of design where it's like for example, Tanita, our marketing coordinator, or even Naira, or we even do this with Christine. Christine's one of our CS agents, and she's so lovely. And so we'll write an email and be like, hey, it's Christine, and look, I always speak to you guys like in the emails because I usually take care of the CS, and Tanita and I have just had a meeting and we want to give you a special discount, but Sasha doesn't know. Like, make sure you know what I mean, like that secret
Every
kind of
time.
like approach, and it's really, 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 it's a little bit. it's a little bit tacky, and I don't think it's appropriate for every brand. But if you've conditioned your audience to be authentic and be in that kind of, that kind of behavioral context with you, it's really, really, really effective. We've got some amazing results with emails like that.
Yeah, absolutely. There are also ways to like really play with your audience. For example, let's say we look at discounts. You could do a mystery discount. Actually, this worked really well for Bisu,
Oh yeah.
like email marketing. So you send an email like, "Hey, we have this mystery discount, but you need to actually go to the checkout and check it out." So it's pretty much telling them they need to do an action, and you're putting them in the checkout. So you're saying, "Hey, if you want to know, you need to go to the checkout." So that
Mm,
mystery discount is so powerful. Now think about this. If I was to hype the mystery discount in the emails, the next, say, 4 or 5 emails. Hey, this discount is really scary. Like we're kind of like we're like almost like afraid of like approving it, right? You're gonna have your audience kind of really, hey, I'm curious, like what's this percentage? And they're gonna go to the checkout. And most of the time, once they're there, it's just one click and
yeah.
you buy. So you're
Yeah.
like kind of with that push. And I think that's a powerful way to look at it in terms of like new strategies. And we do share this like in our calls in the coaching, but it's really tackling that element where you take your hand and take them to the checkout. Like, hey, this is a checkout. This is a button.
Correct.
Do it. And
Correct.
that's how kind of, convert people in email marketing.
And it's like, I want the product anyway, and you've got me here, and the discount's pretty good. I might as well just purchase. Yeah, it's so good. I think the other thing that I probably would even want to mention, perhaps before we close off, is the the use of the emails in respect to being able to take what you learn from emails and then fold them back into ads. Like I always love just like taking, for example, like concepts, or taking like subject lines, or whatever it might be, and being like, okay, so we've seen this particular concept in terms of a discount, or like a subject line, or a particular like email, or like this email copy's crushing it. And then we'll take a variation of that and then put it into paid ads. And I wouldn't say like guaranteed, but much more frequently does it actually perform really well, because it's like the people who have already purchased are loving this behavior, and they're loving this communication style, and they're buying more. Therefore, you can kind of assume that the same people that are out there in Facebook ads that have yet to purchase probably are going to like the same thing. So it's really, really powerful testing ground as well.
Absolutely. You have an audience that you acquired from Meta, and you can, use that audience to actually acquire more people like that, pretty much.
Mm,
So it's really the best environment because you have you have your ideal, avatar and your customers, and you can get more of that. So I think that email marketing is extremely, if I was truly to take a business owner and make them the best email marketer, like I say, in this category, they're going to really do well, like in general. They're not going to have issues
mm.
with the ads because they just have this edge where they know how to
Correct.
extract information and how to apply it. And I think that's why email marketing is so powerful because the best in email marketing, most of the time, the best in the market. And I
Correct.
think that's something to, really think about.
So let's maybe close off on some kind of just overall benchmark metrics in terms of, I'm running my business, and right now my email marketing is performing overall at, say, 10% of revenues. How does that sit? Is that good? Is that bad? Like, what should I be aiming for in my email marketing?
Absolutely. So you need to look at about like minimum, like I would say look at 20% and above. That's going
Yeah.
to be what I would look at in general. Ideally, if you're running, let's say, sign up forms, welcome series, try to aim for 25, 30. I think that's a really good target initially. As you
Mm,
progress, you're going to go for more. Also look at, your email marketing in general in terms of like doors. So do you have enough ways to capture if you're really growing your business? If you don't have a welcome series, your 20% won't be there. If you don't have a
yeah.
welcome series, you're going to be at 10 probably because you don't have the door open. So I think you need to make sure that, as we mentioned earlier, open the doors and then look at the numbers. Otherwise, you don't have the right, you don't have the right setup. So that's going to be my
Mm,
view. So at least 20 plus, like 20% plus, 25 ideally to 30. That's average. I would say
yeah.
average to good. Above 30, you're really good. Like you're really doing
Yeah.
your job in your marketing. 40 plus, you're, mastering it. And I would
Crushing
say
it.
that
Yeah.
that's kind of my view in terms of the numbers.
Very much the same. I absolutely agree. I think if you can hover around that 30% level, 20% is like good, 30% great. Anything above 30 and you're like outstanding. Like you're, and the thing is as well, like the edge that it gives your company, just in terms of like, so you can spend so much more on Facebook, and you can be so much more aggressive with your marketing and scale so much quicker, because you have this just like massive net that captures all the people and folds them back into cash. It's like, it's such a beneficial kind of mechanism for a company. So really, really, really epic session today, Hammond. What if you were to maybe summarize what we've discussed here into like the main core points, 2 or 3 points that you're like, do this, do this, do this, what would they be?
So first, start with essentials. You need your flows, the top four flows. Welcome series, browse abandonment, checkout flow, post purchase. You need those. That's first thing.
Mm,
Get those done. Then next thing would be you have some, you have all the doors open. Look at your numbers. 30% open rate, 1.5% click rate. If you have a low open rate, subject line, focus on that. If you have a low click rate, focus on the content, the offer. And then look at overall the communication. What's kind of the format you're doing? Are we doing a mystery discount? Are we creating this format that you mentioned? Like those kind of things, you need to look at the content and the value specifically that you're driving. If you want to explore things a little bit more, you can do the lead gen. That's another thing if you want to explore. But as we mentioned, that conversion cycle would be longer and you might not be patient enough to get the returns. So probably avoid that and focus on conversions. It's kind of I think, a quick recap of what we talked about, and obviously aim for 20% plus in terms of returns.
yeah. Yeah. I would also just say, just do it
Yes.
consistently. Don't stop doing it ever. And then just like, I think you can like the mindset probably around it is like people are on your list because they want to hear from you and ultimately buy more from you. And if they're on your list and they're not purchasing, then maybe you should send more emails and have them unsubscribe. You know what I mean? Like,
You need to find
in
a way to, it's a relationship based. You need to really win them back or find a way to kind of, figure things out. We need to talk, right? That's maybe the thing.
draw a line in the sand. It's you or is it me? Someone's got to make a decision and leave here. No, very, very valuable session, Hammond. I think this is really, really helpful. And I hope that people listening can, take some of the concepts that we've gathered here and put together around email marketing, improve your email marketing. Hey, if you use any of the email structures or any of the templates or any of the strategies that we did discuss here as well, let us know because it would be fantastic to hear, if anything's working for you, or if you're starting to get any results. And we are going to be covering some very, very exciting concepts next week. So please stay tuned. Hammond, always a pleasure. Looking forward to the next one, my
Pleasure.
friend. Thank you so much.
Absolutely excited for the next one.